everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are going to do some mass producing the quick and easy way. So what I have here is a variety pack of the Simon Says stamp colored cardstock. This is the first time I've ever used it. It is very thick. I got like the 100 pound version. And I made card bases and card fronts out of them. As far as like card bases go, when I went to fold them, I noticed because it is such thick, heavy cardstock, like I got some weird like creases and folds. But I did it straight with the bone folder. I didn't use like a scoring tool to score it first. I used a bone folder right out of the gate. And that may be why I kind of got some weird creases. But anyway, we are going to use the glittering snowflakes stamp set that I showed you in a recent haul, and we are going to use a Pink Fresh Studio ornaments sentiment on today's card. And I'm just showing you the ones that I pulled out. This card is heavily inspired by Christina Werner. She made some mass-produced cards much in the same design. And this is actually illustrated by her. The glittering ornaments stamp set is actually illustrated by her. Here I'm showing you that I pulled the sentiments from this from the ornaments stamp set from Pink Fresh Studio. So how I started is I took a card front panel and I put it in my stamp positioning tool. This one is from Tim Holtz and Tonic. I positioned my snowflakes kind of in a trio off to the left, and my sentiment kind of snuggled up to it in the other corner. For most of them, I'm going to use gold embossing powder from Ranger. For a few of them, I'm using vintage pearl, just because I felt like the gold would clash or look weird. I kind of regret doing this on the pale yellow version, but decisions were made. We're going to go with it. So here I'm showing you that I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool because I am going to emboss these in gold, like I said. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool and my Versamark ink to emboss this. You know when the sleeves roll up that it's about to get serious, right? So I'm going to treat this with my anti-static powder, and I know that it looks like a hot mess right now, but I promise you that that powder comes off, and I'll show you that later on. I've never used these snowflakes before, these like snowflake ornament looking things before, stamps before. So I'm just rubbing my fingers on them. That kind of takes the residue that's on there from manufacturing off and helps them accept the ink a little better. I do end up stamping these, I think, twice. I may stamp this first one 3 times, but after that, I think I only stamp them twice to get a really good impression. I'm making sure that paper is snuggled up way in the corner. That platform has a like sticky mat on it that is very dirty, very well used, very well loved. It's probably time for a new one. I was showing you the Stampin' Bug that I use to help kind of take pressure off your wrists so that when you stamp, you're not putting so much strain on your joints. And I purchased that off of Etsy. This is my big one whenever I use like my Memory Misty or this stamping platform from Tim Holtz and Tonic. I usually use my bigger Stampin' Bug. So here you see that it's stamped beautifully. Those snowflakes are absolutely gorgeous. I love them. I had been looking for a snowflake stamp set. I had one before. The quality was not great, so the images, the photopolymer itself was not great. They were not a high quality stamp set. And so anytime I stamped with them, I was typically not happy with my results. So I was kind of in the market to get a better quality, but equally as beautiful stamp set. And I found it in this glistening, glittering, whichever one I said it was in the beginning, snowflake stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. So I'm going to do this several times with just a variety of the panels that I thought would look really pretty in gold. And we just repeat this process. So these cards are going to be very, very simple. I find that when you mass produce a card, Simple is best. If you have a lot of, I guess you could say, finicky or time-consuming pieces and parts and steps, it makes it very difficult and very time-consuming to mass produce. And so I find that if you keep this very simple, a very easy, minimal color palette or minimal supplies needed, or you're able to pull everything you need from one stamp set, those kind of things make things a lot easier, particularly when you're going to mass produce. I intend on making over 100 Christmas cards. I want to take some to a local nursing home and give it to the residents there. And so the particular nursing home I have in mind has almost 100 residents. And so I need to make quite a few cards. And so keeping things simple. All this particular card is just the heat embossing. I'm going to do a couple things later on, but I'll show you that when we get to it. But this just makes things so much easier and so much faster as if you just keep it simple. KISS method. Keep it simple, sweetheart. Keep it simple. So we're just repeating this a few times, just showing you kind of the process again. But it is very simple, basic heat embossing. So we're done with the gold. We're going to move on to the vintage pearl. So like I said, there were a few colors that I thought would look better in more of a white as opposed to the gold. This pink, there's almost like a burnt orange color and then like a really pale yellow. Honestly, I regret doing the pale yellow. I feel like I should have done it in the gold like the other ones. But like I said, decisions were made. It's still pretty. It's fairly legible. My big thing is I wasn't going to start over. So this cardstock is very good quality. It's very thick. With that in mind, it is much more expensive than the cardstock I normally purchase. I normally purchase packs of cardstock from Hobby Lobby when they're half off. I'm just cheap that way. But I wanted to explore a more higher quality to see if it was worth it to me. The judge is still out on that, or the jury is still out on that. But we'll see. So as I get the embossing powder on all of these, I'm just setting them off to the side. I've got a fairly long desk, and so I just set it off to the side, and I'm going to actually heat set these all at once. So here's the kind of burnt orange color that I mentioned before, and then in the top left, you can see that pale yellow. And I'm just going to do the same thing I did with the gold, put my anti-static powder on, spread it around with that dry brush, apply my embossing ink, stamp it twice, and apply my embossing powder. In that stamp set, I showed you where there is a tree that's made of snowflakes. Here it is right here. I'm going to do the same thing. I have a stack that I thought would look better in the gold and a stack that I thought would look better in the vintage pearl, because I already had the vintage pearl out because I did that last with the other set of cards. I'm going to start with that here. So again, it is the same process. Again, that is what helps make this go faster. This is what makes mass producing so much easier and so much quicker and so much more enjoyable. I know some people get bored with mass production, and so if you're one of those that you get bored with mass production, but you really need to mass produce and you need to keep it simple, I have a variety of colors of cardstock here. The embossing powder, I have 2, but I've got, I think it's 24 different colors of cardstock. Changing up the color of just one of the materials that you need can make it interesting enough that it's easy to mass produce, but you don't get bored. I just slightly changed up the design, but I used one stamp set. So if you can find something versatile like that, it can make mass producing more enjoyable, go by faster. Also doing all of the same step at the same time. So, for example, I would not heat emboss each individual card and then go back to the stamping. So I wouldn't stamp, go ahead and heat emboss it, and then go back and stamp and heat emboss another one. I would do all of my stamping in one step. I would do all of my heat setting in one step. I would put all of my sentiments on in one step. I would do all of the, attaching it to the card base or stamping my, personal logo all in one step. That again helps make the process of mass production so much quicker. So here we're just going to finish up with that vintage pearl. This is more of like it looks like a Halloween orange to me. But again, it's very pretty. And I think that these like rainbow assortment of colors is something that is not expected in a Christmas card set, but I think is still very, very pretty, very festive. Here I've switched to the gold. And again, we're just going to do the same steps, all the same steps. Nothing has changed. You may be saying to yourself, Brandy, where is your sentiment for this one? Because the other card with the 3 like ornament snowflakes, those had a sentiment on there already. That is a fantastic question. And no, I have not forgot that this still needs a sentiment. Now, it is very pretty, and you could leave this card without a sentiment. That is also an option if you wanted to make things even quicker, because like we can tell that this is for Christmas, like Christmas winter. We're not stupid. People are not dumb. It is obvious enough that this is for Christmas or a winter type thing. So this you could actually leave off a sentiment and make it go even faster. I chose not to do that, and I will show you how I put the sentiment on there in a little bit. Now we are going to get into the heat setting. So I actually have this heat gun warming up for quite some time because that helps prevent the paper from warping. Yes, this is thick, heavy cardstock. It's less likely to warp, but it still warps some. As this gun gets even hotter, there is less warping, but I did let this heat up for a good minute before I brought it to the paper. I'm using some tweezers here to help prevent my fingers from burning. I end up ditching those only a few card front panels in just because it was faster and I could switch where I was holding the gun around to keep my fingers from burning. But here I heat set a gold one. Here I'm setting one of the vintage pearls, and isn't that so pretty? I love watching embossing powder heat set. It's so pretty. It goes from like this grainy matte finish to shiny and smooth, and it's so pretty. I love it. I love it so much. So here we're just going to finish heat setting these. And like I said, I'm going to heat set everything all at once. I have all of these card front panels off to my left, and I'm going to heat set all of them all in one go. Again, make it fast, keep it simple, do all of one step, all in one go. You can actually see this heat set on this vintage pearl heat set on this hot pink really, really well. Like I said, it kind of goes from like a grainy to a brighter white. It's really pretty. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Giannis Makula, but this totally smacks Giannis Makula to me. She quite often uses this super dark green cardstock for her videos, for her cards, and it is so pretty. And when I put this on there, I thought of her. I hope to grow up to be like her someday. But anyway, so pretty. Now, all of them are heat set. Look at all those. There are 24 card fronts there, so there will be 24 cards when I'm all done with this. So what I'm doing now is that heat embossing powder, or that anti-static powder, can sometimes leave like a residue on your card. All I'm doing is taking a wannabe Swiffer cloth. I got this from Dollar Tree forevers ago. And all I'm doing is brushing that powder off. You see those kind of white spots? That's that anti-static powder. And I'm just taking this Swiffer cloth and rubbing it over there, buffing it off, and it makes it come off. If there are some spots where it's being a toot and doesn't want to come off, I just take my hand and rub my hand across it. So here's that yellow that I wish I would have actually done the gold. In this video, it's really difficult to see it. In real life, it's a lot easier to see it, but I wish I would have done the gold. Again, decisions were made. So here I decided that I didn't want this to be a full card front panel. I decided that I wanted it to have a little bit of a mat around it. I am going to attach them to the same color of cardstock base, card base, but I wanted to apply some like foam tape or something behind it to give it some dimension so it kind of pops up off of the card base and gives you a little more distinction. So all I'm doing is cutting off 1/8 of an inch from every end so that it's just 1/4 of an inch smaller all the way around. And I'm going to do this for every single one of them. Now, this is a step that you could totally skip. Just attach it as a full card front panel. That would save you time, that would save you materials, and is totally still beautiful. I just decided that I wanted to do something a little different, and so I decided I would trim them down and make them a little bit smaller than my card front panel. Could you have went ahead and cut this smaller to begin with so that you didn't have to go back and cut it? Yes, you could have, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do at the time, so I ended up having to do that extra step. But again, that extra step is totally optional. Now, to help those card front panels stand out a little better, I decided I was going to do just some minimal ink blending around the edges. Now, I have a rainbow of cardstocks here, and I was trying to think of a way to ink blend some color on here that would again help it stand out from the card front or from the card base, but I didn't have to pull out 24 different colors in order to help these stand out. So what I chose to do is find a gray. I chose a very, very light gray. This is limestone from Altenew, and I'm just very lightly, I don't want to say haphazardly, but I'm not taking too much time to make sure I have a beautiful, smooth ink blend all the way around. But I wanted to have some distinction on the edges of this card front. Some of that ink will sit on top of your heat embossing because the heat embossing resists it. So all I chose to do was just grab a dry cloth and buff that off. Comes off super easy, no big deal. Again, this is an optional step. You could just put it on your card front or your card base as is. You don't have to do this ink blending. I decided I wanted to. Glutton for punishment, I don't know. Now, if you look at this one, it looks pretty terrible. Like the ink blending around the edges looks pretty splotchy. It does smooth out as it dries. It does smooth out. Now, I chose a gray because I figured that would give me, I chose a very light gray because I figured that would give me enough of like a shadow, I guess you could say, if you want to air quote that. It would give me just enough distinction. Like I said, to where I didn't have to pull out 24 different colors because that would take me forever because I'm pretty particular and I have a lot of inks. And so I would sit there forever trying to find the perfect match. It doesn't have to be. Just pick a gray, a light gray, and roll with it. Some of them, I wish I wouldn't have done it. Again, that yellow one has given me all sorts of fits. It almost makes it look dirty. I guess you could say vintage if you want to make me feel better. But it almost looks dirty. Here's that pale yellow. I am not good at the vintage feel of things. I like it. I like looking at it, and I think there are creators that do it beautifully. I just don't feel like I do. And so when I started to apply this gray, I was like, oh man, I should have just left this one alone. Again, decisions were made. The person that receives this is not going to think, oh, that looks dirty. Oh, I can't read that. They're just going to be grateful that somebody thought of them. And I have to remind myself of that. So I'm just going to ink blend every single one of these using this light gray, except for there is a dark brown and a black. And I chose a very, very dark gray. I chose, I think it was granite. Nope, I lied. Pure graphite from Altenew to ink blend those. And we're about to get into those. But I just want to show you here what I mean by the distinction. So it's very subtle. I probably should have chose a different color to show you the distinction. But that's what it would look like without the ink blending on the edges. So you can still see that there is a card front panel there, but it's not as obvious as it could be. It didn't stand out as much as I would like it to. So that's why I chose to do that ink blending around the edges. And I'm going to show you kind of the comparison of the two. Again, totally an optional step. You do not have to do it at all. I just chose to. So here we're going to pick up this little card base and we're going to show you the comparison of them. So it just makes it stand out a little better. And I liked that. I'm going to flip this over and show you, okay, this is what it looks like without the ink blending. You can still see that there is a card front panel there, but it's not as obvious, and I wanted it to be more obvious, so that's what I did. Again, you don't have to. So this is the pure graphite, the dark brown and the black. I had to do that with these because the light gray you couldn't see it. I'm showing you there. You can't even see it. So I needed something with a little more oomph, a little more saturation in order to help these to stand out from their card base. But I did the exact same process, just ink blended around all four corners. So that's all of them done. So here I have this huge roll of foam tape, instant dimension foam tape from Altenew. My mat is 12 by 16, and this is how much is on this mat. And all I'm going to do is take a section of this and I'm going to apply 4 strips to the back of each of one of these card front panels. Again, this is an optional step. If you are wanting to make your mass production super fast, if you're wanting to save material, don't do this step. You don't have to. It's your card. It's your loved ones you're sending it to. You do you. If this is not your jam, don't use it. I'm just going to apply 4 strips of this foam tape to the back of each of these cards. And I'm using some titanium coated scissors so that this foam tape doesn't stick everywhere to them and I have this gunky mess. I'm going to peel the backer off and I'm going to apply some liquid glue to the back of this because this foam tape is extremely sticky. And if I don't set it down just right, I'm never going to get it up. I'm going to rip my card base. I'm going to make a mess. So I apply just a little line of, this is reptile glue, in a glue bottle that I purchased off Amazon in a like 12 pack. I did not need 12, but that was the smallest, pack they had. So I'm just applying a thin line of glue so that when I set this down, I have just a smidge of wiggle room before I press it down and it's down for good. I did not get this adhered very straight, but it's okay. It'll be all right. We'll be fine. So I'm just going to do this to every single one of those card front panels. I'm going to apply 4 strips of foam tape to the back, a thin line of glue to the back of that foam tape, and set it down on the card bases that match the card front panel color. So I applied all of that tape, and that is how much of this instant dimension foam tape I have left. Still quite a bit. I mean, you get a lot in this foam tape roll. So this is all of the card bases, card front panels adhered to their card bases. Again, I have 24 cards here. And again, I realize these do not have sentiments, so we are about to take care of that. So that Pink Fresh ornament stencil stamp set has all of these sentiments in it. That's the one I used on the other card fronts, but I wanted to use these strips, these like lines, for this particular card. And so I'm just trying to look and I'm like, okay, well, I could use that one and I could use that one and I could use this one and I could use that one. So what do? I take them all off and I use them all. So there's 8 there and I just put them in my little stamping platform. I put them on some white cardstock. There's 8 there and I need 12. So I'm just going to stamp them twice and the leftover 4 I'll put in the back of the stamp pocket and use them on a different card. I'm going to keep these very simple. I'm not going to break out with my heat embossing again, although you very well could. I'm choosing not to. I could stamp this on the same colored cardstock in black. Again, I'm choosing not to. I'm just going to use a scrap of white paper. This is actually something that one of them is what I use to swatch my inks. No one will ever know. No one's going to take this card apart and look at it and be like, ah, she didn't even use fresh paper. Nobody's going to do that. So again, I've never used these particular stamps before, so I'm just rubbing my fingers on them. And I'm using Gina K amalgam ink because I wasn't sure if the white would be too stark and distracting and drive me crazy. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to apply ink or a marker or something over it to help it not be so bold against these card fronts. And so Gina K's amalgam ink is Copic safe, it's watercolor safe, it's you can use it for all of the mediums. And so I chose that one to stamp them in. It's not as black as like my VersaFine, and so I did stamp it multiple times. Again, these stamp sets have never been used, or these particular stamps have never been used, and so you do have to kind of stamp them a few times to get them seasoned. But also this ink is not super, super black like my VersaFine, and so I did stamp them multiple times. And I just stamped them on 2 sheets of paper, so I would have 16 when I needed 12. And then, like I said, I put the rest of them in the back of the stamp pocket so that when I go and use the stamp set again, if I just need a quick sentiment, they're already there. Now all I'm going to do is take these dies. These are banner dies and sentiment dies from Spellbinders, I do believe. And I'm going to use these to just cut out each of these sentiments. Some of them I left in a banner shape. Others I had to cut down. All I'm doing is using my little Sizzix sidekick guy to cut them out and using those dies to help me cut them out. I use a little piece of Altenew satin masking tape to tape them in place so they don't shift. For the ones that are too long, like the banner itself is too long, I just use scissors to snip it off so that it's the appropriate size that I need. And then we are going to put these on our cards. So I went through and matched all of the sentiments with what I wanted to, where I kind of, speaking's hard, y'all. I kind of put them with the card that I wanted them on and tentatively placed them where I thought I would put them. Now, you could hear these with foam tape. You could add extra cardstock behind them. I'm choosing to adhere mine flat. Again, that's just another way to make this go faster. But if you chose to put your time in making this sentiment pop up, you very well could. I just chose to adhere mine flat. Now, if you're looking at these and you're thinking, man, that white is really stark, that's where I thought I would maybe put marker over it, like Copic marker or ink blend over it. I chose not to. I felt like it was fine. And this is all of the tree ones with their sentiments on them, where I wanted them to go. All of the colors I chose, there's 12 there. And then here are the 12 with the snowflake ornaments and the peace, love, and joy sentiment. We've got the ones heat embossed in gold. We've got the ones heat embossed in the vintage pearl. Again, that yellow one. Oh, decisions, people. Regrets with that one. But that is all of the cards. So again, there are optional steps in here, ways that you could jazz this up and make this fancier. And then there's, of course, ways that you could make it simpler and not quite as involved if you chose to. But I hope you enjoy this. I hope you found some inspiration and tips and tricks to help your mass production go well.